So this is our last video in this little rabbit series, and this one's it's on butchering. So we've kind of made the decision we're not going to show everything. Basically, in the last video we showed some tips for selecting rabbits, and so right now we have 3 rabbits that we're going to cull today. There's lots of information available, and there are other YouTube videos, etc., on sort of the actual
slaughter.
The slaughter process. We're not going to show any of that. We do use the broomstick method, which we do find
very effective.
Yes, for the scale of what we do.
We've butchered a lot of rabbits over the years and never had a problem, never had something go wrong. So
it works for us.
So continuing on now from our last video, we are into processing, I guess, and the bunny that we showed you in the last video that we decided to keep, basically the situation was we had 2 brothers that we had hung on to decide on a breed, you know, they were both nice specimens and we wanted to potentially save one for breeding. Now this is the brother and our cull rabbit. Again, very, very nice specimen, but we're just going to quickly go through what was different. He is not quite as wide in the hip as his brother was. Also, just picking him up, I can tell he is smaller. So we're just going to weigh him quickly. Hopefully he's as good as his brother. He is still fantastically tempered. Hey, no, you guys stay in the thing. Stay there. Yeah, so he is almost a ½ pound smaller. He is 7 pound 11 ounces. So yeah, he's a ½ pound smaller than his brother. So that for us right there would be the choice between the 2. We always try and select the larger, faster growing, mainly because we are doing this for meat, and you want them to get to that butchering size quickly and efficiently.
So we're back inside. Basically everything's done to the point that we now have the equivalent of what you would buy, what a rabbit would look like from the grocery store. So one thing I will mention before we kind of get started here is, for us, for the processing, we really only have 2 tools that we use. So one, and probably the most important one, is a fillet knife. We absolutely love this. It makes what we're about to show you extremely easy, but you can use them for the whole process. Big, I guess, piece of advice on that is you want to keep them sharp. Like we sharpen a lot. We'll probably do this rabbit up and then sharpen before we start the next one. The other tool that we use is basically these, I guess they're garden loppers, but you don't need them for a lot of the processing, but there is a few pieces that this is nice to have where you can actually clip pieces off. But don't use this so much for taking it from a sort of a ready to prepare carcass to what we're going to go through. But I just wanted to sort of show those 2 pieces of I guess equipment that we find very useful when you're processing rabbits. So here's our rabbit. As I mentioned, this is basically processed to the point, very similar to what you would purchase at the grocery store if you were to buy a whole rabbit. This rabbit, when we had weighed it live, was 7 pounds 12 ounces, and processed to this point, which is still bone in, it's 4 pounds 5 ounces. So that's basically you're left with 56% of the rabbit by this point. So that's all the yucky bits out and everything else.
The technical term, yucky bits.
So what we're going to do next, and the reason why we're going to go through this is sort of one of the, negatives is the wrong term, but hard parts for people raising rabbits, because they don't know when you're starting out, what do you do with this? And this is almost kind of a block unless you're used to eating whole rabbits. So the solution that we found is to debone the rabbit. It sounds like a lot of work, but in the end you end up with something that you actually use, and we use a lot of. So we're going to weigh this from this one rabbit and see what we ended up with of deboned meat. So we've got this zeroed with the little bowl on here. So I'm just going to
so the loins were just about a pound.
Add the 2 belly flaps. And the front leg meat. And finally, 2 back legs.
Just over 3 pounds of deboned meat.
So from the
7 3/4 pound rabbit.
Yeah, and basically the carcass was 4 pounds 5 ounces. So that's pretty good when you have very little wastage. So everything's deboned, and we're getting ready to grind. Basically, this is all the pieces, and we call that. The bowl is already taken off that, so this is the weight of
the meat we're going to be grinding. 6 pounds, basically 6 pounds. It's a shade over, but we'll say 6 pounds to make it simple.
So we don't have the loins in here. They were, how much were they?
The loins from the 3 rabbits were 2 pound, 12 ounces. So 2 3/4 pounds, basically. So in total, from the 3 rabbits, we've gotten 8 3/4 pounds of meat.
Mm-hmm. With no bone, etc.
Yeah.
So basically the next step for us, and we're going to kind of skip through this a little bit because the grinder's a bit noisy, but we're going to set up the grinder and grind this bowl full of meat into ground rabbit. So
our grinder is a nice little machine. We actually, I think, got it at Princess Auto. Nothing fancy, but basically I just wanted to show before we got going, that is the size of the, what do you call that part? The grinder size determination thing.
So I think we grind it on fine, I believe.
So
is that what that one is?
It is just, we tried on the medium and it was too chunky. Yeah. For lack of a better word. But anyways, I just wanted to show that part as we got going here. That's a question that we often get asked, is what our grinder is and what size and so on. We do find you do have to cut up the thighs, or back legs, whatever you want to call them, in order to get it through the little spout. It's not built for that sort of size of thickness of meat going through.
But a meat grinder is definitely, if you're processing a lot of rabbits, at least in our opinion, a meat grinder is a very useful thing to have.
It's pretty much an essential.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier for us to, I guess, use the rabbit. But anyway.
Here, I'll just show the medium here. So that is a fine. That was the medium. And we did try it on that, but it still, it didn't work as nicely as the fine does.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll skip ahead here and do the grinding, because the grinder's not terribly loud, but it's probably a little too loud to film. Yeah, we'll come back when we've got it all ground. So this is what we've ended up with. Our ground rabbit there. We've got 6 pounds, so we'll basically be splitting that 1 pound per bag. We do vacuum seal. Makes it just last a little bit longer in the freezer. This batch may not be vacuum sealed because it's probably going to get eaten pretty quick, but that's all right. Anyways, we're going to move on here and make ourselves some dinner, and yeah, check back. So after all that hard work, chopping, piecing, grinding, we decided to have rabbit for supper tonight. So just an example of how we use our pieced up loins. Here we've got a stir fry with a bunch of fresh veggies from the garden, and that was actually 2 rabbit loins. It worked out to be just a shade under a pound of meat, which isn't too bad at all. And we're gonna have that on egg fried rice with some homemade sweet chili sauce. Hope you guys enjoy as great a dinner as us.